So we'd like to bring up a representative of Paul Weiss, Ms. Tanika Brown, who is an amazing Brosis supporter and former board member, to speak on behalf of Paul Weiss.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a new addition to the agenda tonight, so I'm going to just tell you a little bit about who I am and what this event is about. I'm a former employee of Paul Weiss, and I'm also a former board member of the Brotherhood Sister Soul, but obviously very fond of and committed to both institutions. This event started, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago. Valentine and Susan and myself, we thought that we should put together a forum where people could come together and talk about giving back and also being personally successful, and how those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive goals. So we put on our first panel, like I said, 4 years ago, and I think the seats in the room were from that pillar to that pillar, and I don't even know if all those seats were filled. So I'm very happy to see that we have 2 whole new sections of the room filled up, and I think the reason is because we've sort of developed the following with this event, because at the end of every panel discussion, people leave feeling inspired and motivated and enlightened. And I'm sure that will happen again tonight. So I want to thank Paul Weiss for hosting this event once again. And I'm going to introduce Carl Lazar-White, who's the director now and co-founder of Brosis. And he's going to talk to you a little bit about the organization.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Kari.
You've been to this event before. You meet, there's a lot of energy in the room. The panelists are going to bring it, so you as an audience has to bring it in return. You can't just sit back in your chairs, okay? We all agree?
Yes.
So I just am going to talk to you a little bit about the work that really you're here supporting today, because after I'm done speaking, our brilliant panel and moderator will be speaking about their perspective on the issue of philanthropy and of service. Before I get started, I just want to echo the thanks for Ted Wells, who's been one of the major stable supporters of the Brotherhood Sister Soul in more ways than can be counted, and we deeply appreciate all of your support. I'd also like to thank Danielle Dumas, who's somewhere in the back, central to organizing this event every year. She's the head of diversity at Paul Weiss. I'd like to thank Valentine and Andrus, our hosts, the people who coordinated this event, the people who really are the energy and the vision behind it. And thank you both for all your work for this event. So we're going to show you a short video now that's a little under 3 minutes. Last year we were fortunate enough at our annual gala to honor Harry Belafonte, Charles Ogletree of Harvard Law School, and Esmeralda Santiago, a noted writer and producer. And in connection to that event, CNN produced a short video, an overview of our organization. And you'll see a lot of young people in the audience today, and when the panel's over, I encourage you to talk to them. They're brilliant young people who inspire us on our staff every single day. But what this video does is brings our young people's voices into the room, and none of us would be here if not for their voices. And so this 3-minute video will give you a little taste of the Brotherhood Sister Soul.
1 out of 3 black men in America between the ages of 20 and 29 is either incarcerated or under the supervision of the prison system.
A lot of our young people live at or below the poverty line.
Much of what they're learning in school doesn't speak to them.
The Brotherhood Sister Soul is an amazing youth organization. Specifically, we work with Black and Latino youth aged 6 to 22 years old.
This is a Brotherhood Sister Soul.
It ranges from rites of passage programming to after-school care, international study in Africa and Latin America, to home and school counseling, to really welcome a young person into a family-like environment and to provide support, guidance, and direction to young people, and then in turn to provide access and opportunity for them as well.
It's really trying to help young people understand better who they are and to really understand some of the issues that they're facing and to develop the skills and knowledge and resources to combat them.
So then how would this go?
Throughout the year, we serve 250 young people. On any given day, there could be as much as 50 to 75 young people.
Young people are coming in from all different backgrounds, some from stable families, some from some of the most precarious backgrounds one could imagine. Yet we believe all of them can overcome those realities.
There is a real lack of will, I think, in this country to support young people.
We're trying to help young people understand the realities that they face and the root causes of those issues.
I always followed the wrong crowd. And one day when I was misbehaving in class, the teacher sent me to the principal's office. She said that she think that this organization would be good for me.
I joined Brotherhood when I was 9 years old, and I see everyone here as my family.
Each chapter has a mission statement. It starts with a man, a brother, and a leader, and you define those. We've become one with it.
We learn how to set goals for ourselves, and they help us to reach those goals.
I can't possibly imagine that I'll be sitting here right now talking to you, or that I would be the same person that I am today. So it's literally like a foundation in me.
And we always say that Brotherhood Sister Soul is not an organization, it's a way of life. It's about helping young people to develop a code on how they want to live their life, learn the skills to be able to do it, and then to follow that path.
It's just that they're really beautiful people, and they're always pushing me to believe that I can be whoever I want to be.
It's who I am. That's why I stay, and I come back.
In that video, you heard from several different members. And one of them was Nicholas Perk, and he talked about the fact that we help our young people to define what it means to be men and leaders and brothers, what it means to be women and leaders and sisters in their community, and that these are really the governing tenets of the organization. And I think that those definitions speak to our conversation here today, because really what it's about is helping young people develop an ethical and moral code, who they want to be as young people, how they want to live their life, and what it means to be a contributing citizen to humanity. And so when we talk today about what it means to give back, we're talking about something broader than just merely giving back. We're talking about how is it that you live your life? What's the code to how you're going to operate as a man or woman in this society? And so every day we're trying to teach young people how to do that. We're providing support and guidance and love. We're providing discipline and order too. I always say lowercase d, we don't mean the rod or the old school discipline, but we mean teaching them how to focus and how to be disciplined in their life. And then it's about providing access and opportunities. And so when we're talking about reinforcing your journeys here today, the young people are here to learn from your journeys, from the panelists, and from many of you in the audience as you talk with them afterwards. It's about us reaching back and connecting to our young people and helping show them a path on how they want to live their life. And so that's really at the core of the Brotherhood Sister Soul. We do absolutely no sifting. It's about any young person who joins our organization having the opportunity to build a long-term stable life. And over the last 15 years, we've been able to do it because of the depth of our service and our commitment to our young people. And we're an evidence-based program. The city of New York has a teenage pregnancy rate now pushing 10%. We're at less than 2%. As you saw in the video, 1 out of 3 black men in America from 20 to 29 are incarcerated or under supervision of the prison system. We have less than 1%. We have 95% either in school or working full-time, whereas in West Harlem that percentage is at less than 40% presently. And so on your chairs are some packets, and within that packet is information on the Brotherhood Sister Soul. You can read more. But I encourage you to learn more about our work, to listen to the panelists today, and hopefully to be, really inspired to get involved with our work from this point forward. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. We appreciate your energy and your time. And now I'm going to turn you over to our illustrious moderator for the 4th year in a row, our former board member, Susan Chapman, who really needs no introduction. She is a force of nature. Anyone who knows her knows that. She's now Senior Vice President at American Express, and we're not going to be reading everybody's very long bios. They are in your packets, and you can read up. But just know that Susan is somebody who has reached the highest echelons of corporate America and continues to give back to her community through her faith, through mentoring, through her service, and is really an example of what we're talking about today here on the panel. And so, without further ado, Ms. Susan Chapman.
Is my mic on? Can you hear me? I have a big mouth, so I can't talk. Do I just turn it on? That might help. I do have a degree in engineering, so. That was a little too easy. So, welcome everyone, good evening. I'm really excited that you all are here this evening. We expect to have a wonderful time tonight. So let's get on with it. I want to start with some ground rules, right? So tonight we're here to learn from our distinguished panel. They are all wonderful people in their own right. They've done some amazing things, and so I think you're going to walk away with some very interesting, diverse, and great nuggets from them. We're going to learn tonight from them about what it really means to get rich by giving back, right, and what that means to them. We want to identify activities that each person in this audience tonight can take home and really figure out how you turn up your own giving quotient, right? So what can you do in your own world that you can actually give back with? The third thing that we're here to do is we're actually here to create an opportunity for connection. So for those of y'all who have not met somebody else in the audience tonight that you didn't know before you came here, your task after you leave here or after this program is over is to make sure that you connect with people. I think you'll find that there's some amazing opportunities as a result of that. And finally, our last ground rule is to make sure that the gifts that we receive tonight keep on giving well beyond ourselves, right? So what does that mean? That means you got to share this information that you learned tonight with a whole lot of other people when you leave here. So are those ground rules okay?
Yes.
I didn't hear you. Is those ground rules okay? All right. So we are very lively tonight, right? So we will not be sitting here. There'll be lots of laughter, lots of jokes, and we'll have a good time. So I want to take the time to introduce the panelists tonight. We all, like I said, have a wonderful opportunity to learn from some great people tonight. So starting at my far left, we have Paul T. Williams, Jr., who is the president of the Dormitory Authority of the state of New York. In his role, he oversees the authority's 5 operating divisions, offices in Albany, New York City, and Buffalo, and the organization's workforce of over 550 employees. Very interesting enough for Jonathan and I, it's very, because we're both in the real estate business. These are some staggering numbers. He oversees a portfolio of outstanding bonds worth over $42 billion and a construction portfolio pipeline with over 600 projects worth over $6.3 billion, right? It's a lot of things. And in his free time, he actually also serves as a board member of the board of directors of the Moynihan Station Development Corporation, and prior to that, he enjoyed a distinguished career as a corporate attorney, investment banker, and civic leader. He's very committed to the community, and we'll talk a little bit about him tonight. So please welcome Paul to the panel. Next, we have Nina Mitchell-Wells, Esquire. During a career that has spanned over 33 years, she's been an attorney, an educator, a public servant, and has worked with numerous philanthropic causes, and she's actually kept Ted in line in the process. So, appointed by Governor John S. Corzine in 2006, she was sworn in as the Secretary of State of New Jersey. She served in that capacity until January 2010. As head of that department, she was responsible for the Division of Election, the Division of Travel and Tourism, generating $40 billion annually in expenditures, the Division of Archives and Records Management, the Amistad Commission, the New Jersey Historical Commission, and a whole lot of other stuff, so she was busy. Prior to that, she also served as president of Shearing Plows Foundation. She has been honored for all of her achievements. She holds honorary degrees, and she has been the recipient of numerous awards, including the New Jersey Women Lawyers Platinum Award for Leadership in Law, the NAACP President's Award, and she's also a member of the New Jersey Business Hall of Fame. So we're really excited that she's coming to share with us tonight. And she's always been in the audience being supportive, so I'm really excited to hear what she has to share with us today. So thank you, Nina. Our next person on the panel certainly needs no introduction for many of you all here in the room. I have to tell you that Essence Magazine actually was founded right when I was in college. It was actually like the Bible for those of us sisters who were trying to come up. So for those of you all who are in your 40s, you know what I'm talking about. So Susan L. Taylor is synonymous with Essence Magazine, the brand that she built as its fashion and beauty editor, editor-in-chief, and editorial director. For 27 years, right? Think about who's been in the magazine business and one magazine building it for 27 years. She authored one of the magazine's most popular columns, In the Spirit, and many of you all have probably seen that. She is a legend in the magazine publishing world. She's the first and only African American woman to be recognized by the Magazine Publishers of America with the Henry Johnson Fisher Award, the industry's highest honor. So Susan is a bad sister, right? Now, with all of that, right, as if she didn't have enough things going on in her life, she's very passionate about what's happening in our communities. And she's an avid supporter and host of organizations dedicated to moving the Black community forward. And her passion and focus today is with the National Cares Mentoring Movement. And so we just want to take a couple of minutes and see a video about what the National Cares Mentoring Movement is all about.
And relentless demonization of black males, the demeaning of black women,
You know we had to have one technical difficulty.
Okay, these are the facts. One-third of all black children
are living in poverty.
Living in poverty.
These are the facts.
These are the facts.
6.6% of all African American births
are to mothers under the age of 18.
The infant mortality rate for black babies is more than twice that of the national average and rising. These are the facts.
The vast majority of schools in New Orleans are still closed.
Still closed.
Every day in
America, more than 1,000 black children are arrested.
1 in every 8 black men aged 25 to 29.
25 to 29 is incarcerated.
For young black women, aged 25 to 34.
HIV/AIDS is the leading cause of death.
The leading cause of death.
And the leading cause of death for our boys, for our young black men, is homicide.
But these are also the facts, from the hundreds of rebellions that took place on slave ships, to the students who sat in Greensboro, and the students who walked out in Soweto. We have always fought back, always cared for our own, always resisted injustice. We are the people who refuse to die. Today, the urgent need is to reverse the deadly trends destroying the lives of so many of our young people. We believe we all have a responsibility to answer our children's cry for help. So we launched Essence Cares to offer media support to the National Cares Mentoring Movement. Leading this critical effort with me are my co-chair, Tommy Dortch, Chairman Emeritus of the National 100 Black Men of America, and a coalition of leaders of some of the most trusted organizations in the nation, including the National 100 Black Men of America, the National Urban League, the Links Incorporated, and the YWCA. These organizations are in the vanguard. Others are committed as well. This is what this critical call to commitment is asking of you, that you become a mentor. Put a guiding hand on a vulnerable young person's shoulder, or join with friends and mentor a group of at-risk youngsters. Work with the National Cares Mentoring Movement on recruiting mentors for the children that are struggling in your area. Help build and sustain this crucial effort by making a donation to the National Cares Mentoring Movement. No amount is too small.
You can mentor
one of the 2.4 million children. 2.4 million.
Almost 2.5 million children.
Who has a parent in prison.
You can get five
friends.
5 friends to register.
To register and vote.
Failing schools, the carnage in our communities, celebration of thug life, the over-incarceration and relentless demonization of black males, the demeaning of black women. No, not on our watch.
You can demand your church.
You can demand your church
be open for children after school and on Saturdays.
In order to teach our kids an accurate account of their history,
that our churches can create the
communities our children are longing for.
Won't you join in and help recruit the people you work and worship with and your family and friends as mentors? We've lived through harder and harsher times than these. Like then, the most revolutionary thing we can do right now is to love one another. Help to secure the most vulnerable among us, our children, our beloved children.
So I'm in.
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 Are you?
Brotherhood Sister Soul and has spoken on our behalf for a long time, many times, and so Kari also serves on the board of the National CARES Mentoring Organization as well. So we're very happy to have you, Susan. Thank you so much. And last and certainly not least is my friend, Mr. Jonathan F.P. Rose. Jonathan, his business is the Jonathan Rose Company, and it is focused on public policy and not-for-profit work. And it focuses on creating a more environmentally, socially, and economically responsible world. Now, I want to say that that's actually an oxymoron when you talk about real estate. So he's actually going to share some really great things about that. It's a multidisciplinary real estate development, planning, consulting, and investment firm, and is a leading green urban solutions provider. Jonathan is a thought leader in smart growth, national infrastructure, green building, and affordable housing movements. He's a frequent speaker and writer. His work has received widespread media attention from CNN to The Times, and he was recently profiled in E Squared, a PBS series on sustainable development. He is a trustee of the Urban Land Institute, the National Resources Defense Council, and vice chair of the Enterprise Community Partners. He's also the co-founder of the Garrison Institute with his wife Diana Rose, where he leads the Climate, Mind, and Behavior program. And I have to just put a side note that Jonathan always leaves me thinking whenever I have a conversation with him. Now let's get on to it. I'd like for each one of the panelists to start out with the first question, which is, thinking back, what were your earliest experiences around giving, right? And how were you introduced to it? So Ted, let's start with you. I'm sorry. You all have to excuse me. I looked over here to the left. So. Oh, I'm sorry.
I answered 10 too, I guess.
I wanted you to be other than I'm just kidding.
But that's a great question, and sort of feeds into something we'll probably get into later, which is where do you develop, or how do you develop the concept of giving that almost by definition involves an empathy for others. I gotta tell you, my first experience with giving was in my family. In particular, as a young boy growing up in my household, where I had a mother and father that were very much attuned to the concept of giving back, the concept of helping and looking after the next generation. So I sort of learned that as a youngster, and that's one of the reasons I think it's so very much a part of my DNA as an adult. And my father, for example, we lived in what I guess today might be called suburbs, or what I thought of as the country, really, in terms of our location vis-a-vis the city that was born in Trenton, New Jersey. We grew up outside of Trenton in what was really sort of a semi-rural area. My father was a physician. And one of the things he would do besides helping out in terms of health care and that kind of thing, he'd bring kids out to the house on the weekends just to sort of get out from the city, see a slice of life that might have been different to them, get some exposure to where we were in the country. And really, as I think back about it, through that kind of experience was really my first real concept of getting personally involved in the lives of other people, lives other than our family.
Great.
Okay, I remember my first experience very, very well because I had been practicing law for about 3 years. I was at New Jersey Bell, and I got a call or a meeting with the VP for Human Resources, and he said, Nina, we want you to be on the United Way Allocations Committee, and you'll decide how much various organizations will receive in funding. And I thought to myself, I just joined New Jersey Bell. I'm trying to figure out how to be a corporate lawyer. I have 2 children under 2. And I have a really busy husband. And I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder what this is going to involve. But I tell you, it was the best experience of my life. I got 5 phenomenal organizations that were assigned to me, all located in Newark. I was in Newark at the time. And what an eye-opener it was in terms of what these organizations needed in terms of resources, not just money, but all kinds of resources, which we'll talk about later. And I remember denying funds to one organization because I didn't feel as though their after-school program was robust enough. And I thought, I can really have impact. This is powerful. This is really a lot of responsibility. So I said, my kids are going to get a lot. I need to really do this. And some of the organizations were storefront, and they were hanging on by a thread. And I really discovered just, how much people really need to do to make sure that these organizations thrive. So that's what launched me into a variety of things. I joined a whole host of nonprofit boards after that. They were recruiting me very aggressively because there were a lot of people on the main United Way board, and they said, and you are, and your husband is. So from there, it just kind of snowballed out of control. And then we started fundraising ourselves. And I'll talk about this some more, fundraising in particular for the United Negro College Fund. And it started off very small at first, and we had a small house, and we'd have 50 people over, and we charged $25 and give them wine and cheese. And then those fundraisers grew to over 200 people, where we kept buying houses so we could accommodate the crowd. And finally, we just said, we got to go to the Performing Arts Center. So I'll talk more about that, but that was really my first entree into the whole nonprofit world.
Susan?
I grew up in Harlem, and heroin just chased those of us who could leave away. And when we moved to Queens, we had more room than we ever did. My brother and I slept in the living room. So my mother said, we can bring other families or other children in here. And so my mother became a foster parent. And I suddenly had 3 charges. And I think that's what really fired my passion, an understanding of what, young people who didn't have what so many of us take for granted are contending with. And then before those 27 years that I led Essence, I actually was the fashion and beauty editor for 10, so I was there for 37 years. And in those 10 years, heroin had just run roughshod through communities. And they kept calling me to come. And I said, well, I don't really speak publicly. By nature, I am still surely somewhere inside of me a shy person. So they said, we know we need you to come because there are women who have been addicted to heroin. Many have been incarcerated, and they really don't feel good about themselves. Their bodies have all sorts of scars and marks, and if the beauty editor could come and speak life into them and tell them how to recover their own beauty. I said, okay. And I remember going, and I just kept going to prisons and to recovery programs, and I saw what would have happened to me. Surely, because I was a wild child in Harlem, not like my brother. What would have surely happened to me if my mother and father weren't in their right minds and fully grown when they gave birth to me, and they're Caribbean people, and they put these strictures around me, and there were some very definite things that we couldn't do. And it really just opened my heart to the importance of us, as we move our lives forward, not disconnecting, because very often, I think this is so true for Black people especially, our education and our affluence disconnects us from our people who are struggling. So I see myself today as a bridge. I'm just coming back from the White House and meeting with the Justice Department. I was hoping the train would get me here on time. So that's, it was the pain of our people that called me then, and it's what calls me today.
Really inspired by what everybody else has said. So I grew up in a family that was deeply committed to giving back. Is this on? Can you guys hear it? Okay. So I grew up in a family that's deeply committed to giving back. My parents in different ways. So my father was in the real estate business and very, very philanthropic, and so he used to, and he always said the most important thing he could do was give of his time and his skills. So when I was growing up, the talk around the house was always the Henry Kaufman Campgrounds, the Children's Aid Society, the Lexington School for the Deaf, all these organizations that he joined and then helped them build new facilities and solve their real estate problems and grow, and that was his way to relate. And he did a lot of affordable housing to relate to their issues. And my mother was a very hands-on person, and she had dropped out of college to marry and then went back, became a teacher, and she spent her life in inner city schools teaching teachers to teach reading. And she's 82 years old, and she still does this every single day. She shows up and goes to work to do this. And so with her, so I kind of had these two influences of kind of working at the systems level and applying real estate skills to that, and working deeply at the human, individual, person by person human being.
Wonderful. So interesting enough, everybody who knows me knows that my mother and my grandmother had a very strong influence on me, and they were some good old black men from down south. And my grandmother used to grab me up when she felt like I needed a life lesson. And so one of the things that she used to share as a life lesson was she used to say, don't ever worry about the receiving, because if you take care of the giving, the receiving will take care of itself. And of course, when I was little, I was like, yeah, okay, Grandma, right? And then, she would, snatch me back up. But I realized over the years that that was her philosophy of giving back, right? So I'm curious from the panelists, if you could share what is your philosophy of giving back? So when you think about it today, what does that look like? Let's start with you, John.
Well, I go with your grandmother in that to me, it's not an issue about taking and giving. It's about constructing the whole life. And it's about constructing a whole life. It's about having a holistic view of who you want to be in the world and what you want to create in the world. Then what I find, and if that has meaning and purpose and inner commitment, and if it's holistic, a lot of interesting things happen within that. It means that most likely the people you're going to be friends with and associated with and doing business with and relating to are of the same worldview, and it's a very virtuous circle. And so, so for example, our company, which is a for-profit dealing mostly with not-for-profits, we're dealing with the most amazing people with the most amazing passions, and we're all in it together. So just as there's not a giving-taking, there's not an us-them in the cycle of what we're doing.
Susan?
I think we're all called, to do something. And when we hear that calling, it always, when it's a calling from that place within that is deep and rich and some of us call spirit, it's always a calling to make life better. Whether you're a baker, whether you're building real estate or making magazines or practicing law. And so I think that what has happened, though, is that we get so busy and so stressed, and we put things on our plate that don't allow us to give back in ways that we should, and that's why society is it's so broken. And people all over the world are struggling, and very often I always say, forgive me, that the world is out of balance because of us, because of women, because we shrink back from life. We spend so much time doubting and fearing and believing that we're not. And it's our passion and compassion that is so needed at the table, whether it's, at the international table and we're looking at, we don't have to be at war. We don't have to have homelessness. We don't have to have hunger. And we're silent about it. So I think a lot of what we must do is create that space in our lives, that quiet time, so that we can hear that inner voice that is really calling us to nourish ourselves first. You have to give yourself to yourself before you give yourself away, and then do that other critical work. And what gives me the confidence to say this all the time when people say I don't have time to do another thing, I think it was Time Magazine or the Wall Street Journal, I'm not sure where I read it, but the average American is spending 17 hours a week watching television. And we're saying, how about giving one of those hours to a struggling young person? Just putting your hand on that person and moving that person forward.
I think I'm going to copy you. Pull this up. Felt like I was leaning. I tend to give, not exclusively, but to organizations that made a difference in my life. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I was one of 8 kids. My parents were divorced when I was 5. So as a result, I didn't have all those lessons that I've given my kids, the ballet, the piano. They hate for me to tell this story. I'm like, I never had any of that. But I had the Girl Scouts. And my younger sister and I, for us, the Girl Scouts was a refuge. It was a place to go and be nurtured and to feel good about yourself. And I had this lovely Girl Scout leader, Mrs. Van Leeuwen, and she had like 7 kids, a little raggedy station wagon. But she just devoted herself, and I'm like, I want to be like you. She was the most wonderful woman. They had nothing. Whatever she had, she was sharing it with me. So the first thing I did was I became a Girl Scout leader. I went to a African American school in a depressed area in New Jersey and became a leader. And taught them how to sew, do sit-upons, and do all the kind of stuff I learned to do. And then I gave them a lot of money. Ted, I gave him a lot of money. And I host a big fundraiser in my house every single year. He probably doesn't even know about that. So I give to organizations, not exclusively that help me, but I tend to relate to those. And I say, I have a Girl Scout story, and I want every girl to be a Girl Scout. If your mother's in prison, I want you to be a Girl Scout. And I had funded through the Sharing Power Foundation organizations that make sure, I don't care where a girl is in her life, I want her to feel empowered. So I tend to support those organizations that really made a difference in my life. I'll talk about some of those, more of those in a minute.
And actually, if you could take the mic out, because they're having problems here so when you speak. So, yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit to that question, philosophy of giving. Now, I'm assuming that when we talk about giving, we're talking about both time and treasure, and typically both, but certainly over the course of my lifetime, I spent a lot of time working on a lot of charitable type of initiatives. And I think my philosophy of giving has refined itself over time. So today, when I think about the allocation of time and what I need to do and what I can do, three words come to my mind: purpose, passion, and solution. Purpose meaning that there has to be some connectivity to the activity, to the group, to the initiative, to what I see as a fundamental purpose for me being here. And I'm out of an era and out of a culture where a lot of my purpose in life is associated with the struggle of black folks in this country and globally. And that's one thing that motivates me. We've already heard about a lot of challenges out here. But passion is a big part of it too, because why spend time if you're not passionate about it? Passion is what gives you the ability to drive yourself, to commit to time, to commit to talking to your friends about things you're involved in. So it has to be something that I'm passionate about. And last but not least, and this is really where I think there's been a real defining change in my thinking about this over time. Spending time on things that are offering solutions rather than on things that are just turning the wheel over again. So I've tried to find those things that I think are really making a difference in lives, whether it's individual kind of mentorship or whether it's helping develop some structural approaches that can help change and redirect lives out here.
Great, thank you. So I want to just kind of come back to Nina, one of your comments, and have the other panelists comment about it. So you talked about how impactful that woman who was the Girl Scout leader was on you, right? I'm wondering from the panelists, what's the most impactful thing anybody's ever done for you?
Oprah Winfrey gave us $1 million. And, that was impactful. I have to add this, that when I learned some years ago, because I started this as Essence Cares, and then couldn't let people around the country use the Essence brand, so that's when I created the National Cares Mentoring Movement. And then each unit, we're in 57 cities, and in each city, Newark Cares, Greater Newark Cares, Greater National Capital Area, that's Washington, D.C., and so forth and so on. So when I learned that 80% of black fourth graders were reading below grade level, I didn't even believe it. Call Marion Wright Edelman, she said, yeah, we're losing ground. Today it's 85. This 3 years ago it was 80. So I stepped away from Essence, and basically what I said to myself and to my husband, I have enough. I have enough. I never lived above my means. I saved my money, and I have enough. Well, I didn't plan on giving a lot of what I had, most of it, to the National Cares Mentoring Movement, because people couldn't understand the concept. No, we're not a mentoring organization. What we're doing is trying to fill that gap between the 3 million youngsters who are being mentored and the 15 million who are waiting. And we need to recruit mentors and send them to the mentoring organizations that are hungering for mentors, you know. So Oprah wanted to give me a tribute for my 37 years at Essence, and I said, I don't need a tribute, I need a fundraiser, you know. And she stepped up and did that, gave the tribute and the $1 million.
Paul?
You may have me stumped now.
They should have warned you.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm going to have to break it down just to a life lesson because when I think about, most impactful thing, I'm thinking about something that's helped motivate me in my life. So I'll tell you this short story. I went away to prep school when I was 14 years old. Left Trenton, New Jersey, Lawrenceville, New Jersey, where I'd grown up. Thought I had a pretty good public school education. Got up to Phillips Exeter and I found out that I didn't have hardly any education at all relative to where folks were at that time. And had been a straight A student, had been terrific in school, and for the first time in my life was facing the challenge of trying to keep up, trying to understand, and trying to stay abreast of my classmates. I had a biology teacher, older guy with one of these military crew cuts. And I was frankly struggling in biology. He called me in one day. He sat me down, and he didn't spend a lot of time with me. He said, "Mr. Williams." I said, "Yes, Mr. Bickle." He said, "Oh, Professor Bickle." He said, "Mr. Williams, I don't think you belong here." And that's about all he said. And he sort of just sent me on my way. Now, lots of different ways someone could react to that, and I think I reacted, in a lot of different ways. But fundamentally, it was a motivation for me to dig deeper, to try harder, to work longer, to apply myself in ways that I didn't even know at the time that I could do. So as I've grown older, I've come to believe that that was a gift, as opposed to what it felt like at the time. And in a lot of ways, that perhaps was one of the most impactful things that happened to me.
Now, my next question was going to be, how do you pay it forward? But I'm not sure you want to pay that forward. Jonathan, what's the most impactful thing you've ever done for us?
I don't know if there's I don't know if there's a most, but I had a person who I held as my hero. There's a guy named Jim Rouse, and Jim Rouse.
Can you tell the audience who Jim Rouse is?
So Jim Rouse was it's hard to call him a real estate developer, but he's a real estate developer who imagined an entire new community called Columbia, Maryland, and he imagined a place that was both environmentally and socially responsible, that was integrated. He was very involved in integration from early days. It had great schools that he tried to do everything with this place, and it still persists today. And he formed a not-for-profit, which I'm deeply involved in on the board of, called Enterprise Community Partners, which works with 2,000 community groups around the country to carry this. So, and he was just a visionary, and he just always had internal optimism. He always had a new idea about something he wanted to do. So, so he was my role model, except I didn't know him. I mean, he was just observing him. And but I managed to introduce myself to him, and early in my career, I was in a family business, and I left in 1989. So 21 years ago, 22 years ago, I started my own company. And every once in a while, when I needed some advice, so I was running all around the country, and he was always running all around the country, and I would call his secretary and ask if I could meet with him. And I would get like 15 minutes or half an hour with him, somewhere on where his journey and my journey hooked up. And it was such an amazing, and he was like, he was on White House commissions. He was inventing the low-income housing tax credits. And I was just this little guy. He just found the time to talk to me and listen to me and give me advice.
Susan, can I just add to that Jim Rouse story? I just was so moved when you mentioned his name. And to me, it's a lesson in staying humble. I had never heard of Jim Rouse. I was speaking at Stanford, and somebody said I was speaking about us, what we're talking about tonight. This is years ago. And somebody said, you have to meet Jim Rouse. Okay, fine. Next thing I know, somebody named Jim Rouse's assistant is calling, or Jim Rouse's assistant is calling my office at Essence, and he wants to have an appointment with me. I said, well, okay, the person at Stanford said I should meet this person, and I will do that. And I tell my team, can you just pull some information? I don't even think Google wasn't even invented then, you know. Yeah, pull some information. I got to find out who Jim Rouse is, and he's coming up to Essence, you know, whenever in another couple of weeks. So they go on and they find this piece on 2020. Jim Rouse really built Columbia, Maryland. You know, he created the whole model and built it. And then Jim Rouse comes up to my office. By that towel, he was 90-something when he died. He might have been 88. In a cab, golfing hat, little shirt, comes up to my office, sits down, plaid jacket, sits down and talks to me about possibilities, shows me a video of just what he had done in Philadelphia. And I wrote about him in my second or third book. He became a hero to me, the real deal. You know what it is? Social entrepreneurship rather. Building, doing, becoming wealthy and giving back. We can do both.
He may have actually invented the phrase social entrepreneurship.
Probably
I think he actually did. Yeah, he may have actually done it. So can I just tell one more, Jim Rouse?
You sure can.
I told you I really wanted to reach out to this guy. So one day I heard that he was lecturing at Harvard. So I went to the Harvard Design School, and I went to the place where he was lecturing, a particular auditorium, and it was so crowded I had to sit on the steps. I remember to this day the spot where I was sitting, and I just watched, and I just listened to the guy. So, this fall, I was invited by the Harvard Design School to come to co-teach a symposium on taking the work of Jim Rouse forward with Edward Norton Jr., the actor, who is his grandson. And I went to Harvard, and they put me in the same room, and I sat in the same thing. I can't tell you how it moved me to, like, not that I deserve to be in that position, but just to, like, be in that place. And I looked at that step and remembered where I was as just this young person, you know, looking up to him. And so that actually, I think, to keep that cycle going is really, really important.
So it's interesting. All of you all have certainly exhibited humility, right? But certainly all of you all are superstars in your own right. How do you keep it in check, right? So, you know, once again, my grandmother used to say, baby, you know, when you start to believe your own hype, that's all it is. Right? So how do you stay grounded, right? Anyway.
Managing that portfolio.
that certainly helps. How do you stay grounded? I mean, a couple of things. Number one, that's why you spend time doing other things besides working and making a name for yourself professionally, because you do need to stay balanced in your life. And when you have a chance to work in schools or work with young people or work on other things outside of your main area of profession, it tends to help you keep in check, keep balance, and understand that we're all here on this planet together, and lots of things that we need to be doing together to help each other. And then also, of course, family. It's nothing like a family keeping you in check. And I have three kids, all of whom, well, two of them are in college now, and one's a sophomore in high school. And they're all at the stage now where they're very happy to check daddy when they get a chance. And it's been a delight and a delightful part of my life to have them involved. But that's it.
Well, I just know that I'm where I am because of a lot of luck and a lot of other people. So I tend to sort of gravitate towards those mentoring programs, scholarship programs, because I know everybody will not be as lucky as I was. I was very fortunate. Had two really hardworking parents. Like I said, they were divorced, but my father worked for the post office. He was a railway mail clerk. And I was so lucky because he really believed so deeply in education. And he said, anything that you get is because other people are going to really help you get there. And that was so true, whether it was an internship. Growing up in D.C., all you needed to do was to get into a line at 15 years old with a work permit, and you got a job. And I had some great jobs. Ted did too. We worked for the various departments. He did interior, and I did one summer health, education, and welfare. And I had the most wonderful mentor that summer, and he really spoiled me. He ruined me for life, because he thought I was the most wonderful person on earth. And I just believed it. Really, I did. And then when I had other jobs in corporate America and they didn't give me the same credibility, I was crushed.
Oh, wait, Nana, I think you got an amen corner.
Okay, so I just always knew that I was just lucky, but there's so many young people, particularly people of color, who are treated the way I was in many instances. That was a very unusual experience to have an internship where I was just so embraced, because usually people were indifferent. So often they were indifferent. So I know that the most important thing for us to do is to instill in another young person. And I tried to do this with my children with an organization that we were involved in, Jack and Jill, and we tried to, for every single kid, to say, you are wonderful. Every time we would greet them, you're brilliant, you're fabulous. What are you going to be, a nuclear physicist? And I got that from growing up in Washington, D.C., right after Brown versus Board of Education. And my father, as I told you, worked for the post office, but we lived in a neighborhood where doctors and lawyers lived in the same neighborhood. And they never said to me, are you going to college? They said, what are you going to major in? I bet you're going to be a lawyer. I mean, 8 years old, I'm like, yeah, I'll be a lawyer. So I tried to enhance the experiences of so many children by saying that. And we should say that to every one of the children that we see. Ted and I have been involved with a daycare center in Newark for many, many years. It also houses the Fresh Air Fund. That's my oldest board. 30 years I've been on the board. And when you see the children come in sometimes with no hat on, no coat on, all you want to say to them is, you're beautiful, you're wonderful, give me a big hug, right? So I'm humble because I know I'm just lucky, period.
Let me say amen to that, because talking about luck, when I joined Essence, I had a high school diploma and a commercial one. I had never gone to college. I thought I wanted to be an actress after high school, never was in a play, ridiculous, I wasn't good. And I said, Lord, if you let me out of this, I'm going to follow my heart. And that was cosmetology. And I wanted to form a cosmetics company for black women, women of color. Because at that time there were no shades for brown and black women. So that's what I did. I was married. My first marriage was to a hairdresser. He owned beauty salons in Harlem. I started a line of cosmetics, and Essence heard about me because at that time, we're talking about the height of the Black Power movement, and no sister with a journalism degree wanted to write about anything as mundane as beauty. And that's how I got my foot in the door. But let me tell you what I watched over the years. I watched, and we're talking about 37 years, I would watch people who just were like at the heights, and you couldn't even get them, and then 5 months later, or 5 years later, they couldn't even get a ticket to a show, And I just watched how, just the ebb and the flow, and something that Sean Combs, who's my godson, my daughter and Sean grew up together, his mother and I were really good friends, are good friends. And the young people at Essence wanted me to interview. I'm like, I don't want to interview Sean Combs. I'm going to interview Maya Angelou and, Dr. Betty Shabazz, who was alive, and Coretta Scott King. But they pushed like you young people do. And I said, okay, I will interview him. And so, we were sequestered high above Manhattan there at the Trump International Hotel. 5 hours, wonderful interview. First cover that he did for Essence. And at the end of the interview, I said, so Sean, are you happy? And he said to me, Auntie, last year I signed a contract for $30 million over a period of time. And last year I said, this is the year. Next year, this is the year that I was going to be happy. And you know what? I'm not. Not only am I not happy, I don't know anyone, Sean said, who is wealthy and famous who is. That went straight to my heart. And it underscored what I know. You've got to have a relationship with something larger than the next biggest house, biggest car, gotta have stuff. Stuff doesn't make you happy. And I just watched the people who I met over the years at Essence, and behind the scenes you get to know folks, and some of the wealthiest people we know are some of the most miserable people. And I had a mother who just would come take me shopping, be there at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Be there at 3 o'clock on Saturday. We go through the supermarket and people, can I have your autograph signed in Essence? My mother, what is this nonsense? Come on, we have to go get milk. I want to go to the supermarket over there because it's 2 cents cheaper. Mommy, I'm going to burn up the gas. And my mother. And I think the experience is watching the celebrities at Essence, come and go. And what Sean said really spoke to me. And I think, quite naturally, I think I'm a humble, just around the way girl. And God's been really good too. So I went back to school. Humbled myself. Can you imagine? I'm at the height of my career. And I'm like, you really need to read these books. You need to be a better writer. And I humbled myself and went to Fordham University across the street from my house, took a test, was so nervous I would fail. I would walk into the classroom and youngsters would say to young people, I was younger then too, are you teaching this course? And I was sitting in
class. Come back to college, Jonathan, but how do you say
So I'm glad everybody is digressing a little bit because I want to start, I've been looking all night at this thing that says getting rich by getting back. And so the first question is, what is getting rich? And so I'm going to pick up on this theme of money because it's a very interesting neurological phenomenon that about money. So money, the economists tell us, is a neutral vehicle for exchanging value. So you have a bunch of apples and you have a bunch of oranges and you want to trade them, and you use money as this neutral way to exchange it. But it's not neutral at all. And it turns out, if you look at people's brains, when they trade apples and oranges, there's a part of value part of the brain that's working. But if you simply do the same thing through money, it goes through the addiction part of the brain. And actually, when I even say the word money and you hear it, it goes to the addiction part of the brain. And very interestingly, they've done studies where they'll ask people questions about values and relationships, and in the room in which they're taking the test, if there are pictures of nature on the wall, they'll answer about from the point of view of the whole. And if they're just pictures of dollar bills and coins on the wall, they'll answer from the point of view of selfishness. And so the idea about rich, if rich is about money, it by its very nature drives us to be selfish. And as many people have said, it is when we connect the greatest happiness, and there's all kinds of studies of happiness show that our greatest happiness comes from being part of the whole and not from the more you expand your identity to feel like you're part of something larger, the happier and more satisfied you are. And the more you contract yourself to your ego, the less happy you are. So getting rich is actually not at all about money. It's about being part of the greater universe. The best methodology I know to do that is a spiritual one. And it is, so I meditate twice a day. I deeply believe in spiritual practices, but there's been a lot of science again about spiritual practices that say this expansion of the self simultaneously, this change of moving your identity from yourself to other, makes us more resilient, makes us more flexible, makes us more satisfied.
Now y'all see why I like being around Jonathan, right? So I want to come back to something you said, Susan, which was about how people get disconnected the more they get, right? So we have people in this room of all different levels, all different stature, and so we have lots of young people in this room, lots of young people from the program who are building, just starting out. So how do you stay connected? What are some tactical things that people should do and think about to stay connected? And this is open to everybody. Would love for Susan for you to start.
I think you have to be available. We fill up our lives, and we have to make room. I think what you just said, I'm a meditator. Without that, I couldn't even breathe. And this is something that I really want to bring into schools. We were just talking about Camden. To create, and I speak in corporate America a lot, and I try to couch it in different ways, but you have got to have a relationship with the divinity that lives within you. That we're more than we seem. We're human and divine. And I grew up in Catholic schools in Harlem and Queens, and never heard that anything divine was within me. I thought it was out there somewhere. So when you create, I always say you give yourself to yourself first. When you begin your day, understanding and reminding yourself that, you don't have to struggle. Life is not really a struggle. Everything, when you live for something larger than yourself, everything you need is right there. Right there. And I see this work. It's called synchronicity. It just comes to you if you're trying to do good in the world, because a new world is on the way. God is trying to help, trying to save the world, but it can only happen through us, or Allah, or Jehovah, whatever you call the universe. So what I'm saying is that when we understand that we have to live a life of balance, all work, Anything is off balance. And every day, if you don't remind, it's remembering. We know this, but you have to remember it every single day. So every single day, I just make that time to remember that, I leave that space for reflection, for kindness, because when I'm stressed out, I'm not a good wife. I don't speak well to my husband. When I'm, sweetie, slow the car down, rather than would you stop the damn car? So this is it. I think when you take time for yourself and you create balance in your life, everything swings into balance, and you know that you don't feel good deep within yourself unless you are doing something that really has meaning in the world, something that has meaning. So.
Well, I'm going to sound really cold after that. First of all, one of my panelists, he said, the whole description of getting rich. There's nothing wrong with getting rich, because the more money you have, the more money you can give away, right? That's what I tell my kids. You can be very philanthropic. So our son is in business, and he said, I'm going to make so much money, so I'm going to give a lot of it to charity. We're like, you better. Because one of the things we've done is include our children in all the philanthropic things that we've done and political things, so that they come out. Years ago when they were young, they had the trays and hang up the coats, and we said, one of these days you're going to be hosting these parties. But I just want to say, and this may sound a little cold, but in some ways being connected and being philanthropic can really help you with your career as well. Of course, that's not the main reason you go into it, but that is one of the benefits. I think being philanthropic really gives you a lot of visibility and a lot of exposure. I know that hosting events, the guest list would sometimes include people that I was very happy to meet. And under other circumstances, I may not have met them. And it opened doors. I mean, I didn't do it for that purpose, but did it open doors? Indeed, it did. I think it gives you credibility. I think it allows you to voice your opinion about certain subjects and topics when the time comes. I think it gives you a lot of potential power to really help people. And I have a very good friend who just ran for the school board in Newark. He was #1 vote-getter. He's now the president of the school board in Newark. And being able to, bring together my Rolodex and to throw a big part fundraiser for him. This is somebody that I believe will be a real voice of educational reform in Newark. So I think the philanthropic piece has a lot of residual benefits. I know that from my standpoint, like I said, in terms of credibility, exposure, platform, and then what else it can do for you in your career, it adds to your brand. And I was lucky to be able to fold philanthropy into my professional portfolio. So one of the other things that I bring to the table is the ability to, do the philanthropic piece as well. And I think it enhances you professionally. Of course, you want to do it for all the right reasons. But like I said, I think it really gives you an opportunity to, if you sit on a nonprofit board, if you start to really voice your opinion about things, you can be a real leader. And you can really help those people that want to do things politically as well, which we know is critical, just critical. And doing it for the school board, just getting enough money to knock on doors to get people to come out and vote was a huge initiative. So I do look at it as being something that would really, increase your credibility and really enhance you professionally and personally.
Here in New York, initiated by 100 Black men, developed by 100 Black men, and now the mission is carried out through a foundation, the Eagle Academy Foundation. We have 3 schools in New York, one in the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn, and they're all boys schools centered around principles of mentorship, of rigorous curriculum, of character development and community service, essentially. And we have a model. There's 7 key principles that we bring in each of the schools, and we're looking to do another 4 in New York City. We're looking at possibly doing one in Newark and some other locations. So it's terrific. The couple of key things for me, when we started, I was very much involved in the development of the concept and getting it through the Board of Education under Mayor Bloomberg, and it was a real story unto itself. And along the way, I was much more involved in direct mentoring than I am now, and that was great. But right now, I'm involved mostly at the board function as chair of the board, trying to grow what in essence was a board initially of believers to a board that can be more involved in developing corporate support and opening doors for us in the context of giving than we have so far. So we're in a board transition, and that work it helps me stay grounded for sure. Primarily by giving me an opportunity again to do some things outside of the lane that I'm typically in, 8 to whenever I stop working. But let me go back for a second about this whole stay connected issue as well. Because everybody has their own ways of staying connected, so to speak. You've heard about some of them here. One of the things that I think, certainly for me, is important, not necessarily universal, but is doing a lot of reading around current events outside of my immediate area. So learning and reading about current events, whether it's abroad, whether it's dealing with other issues or whatever, that's something that I find really helps keep me focused and thinking about a lot of different things, which is something that helps keep me connected. If I'm ever stuck on one thing for too long, I don't feel too good.
Jonathan, how do you stay connected?
So, actually, Nina expanded what my answer was going to be. And I'm going to talk about 2 levels of connected. And she was talking about one level of actually very important connected that, I know we're talking about 3 levels of connected, that not-for-profit work can connect you to many other people. It is a networking, relationship building opportunity. But also, by the way, people really can tell about authenticity. And so if you're doing it merely for that reason, people immediately know. But if you're doing it, if you're bringing really strength and resources and value to organizations, people will really appreciate it. There's a second level, which is being connected to the people who you're serving. And one of the most, you heard a lot about visiting with the mentees or going to Brotherhood Sister Soul and seeing it, the more that we actually also connect with the people that we're serving and see the humanity within them and their needs, not only their needs, their capacities, their strengths, to see them as fellow human beings, I think is extremely important. And then the third level of connected is that I'm very blessed because it's an almost seamless, I have a for-profit business. And I do a lot of not-for-profit work. And a lot of my for-profit work is with not-for-profits. And there's a kind of a seamless integration, so I don't have 2 different buckets in my life, and one is my philanthropic bucket. So for example, Enterprise, I mentioned them, I'm on their board. Our company uses them to help us raise money for us, do low-income housing tax credits, etc. I invented the Green Community Program to bring healthy green housing to low-income communities. There's like this continuous interflowing, some of it's business, some of it's not-for-profit, sometimes I'm raising money for them, sometimes they're raising money for me. And I think that when your work life and your not-for-profit life, the more they're integrated and mutually reinforcing and whole, then that is a very deep connection.
So I'm very cognizant that many of you all are sitting there, you've been taking notes, and you want to ask some questions. And so I want to make sure that I give us ample time to be able to ask our wonderful panelists some questions. So I'm going to open it up for questions right now. We'll have time for about 2 or 3 of them. So who has a question?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Kari, we speak about you all the time, about your giving, which is so huge. Can you tell us what motivated you with a law degree, an undergrad degree from Brown, a law degree from Yale, to continue what you started in college, right, at Brown, and come back into the community and not go into the larger arena and make a ton of money and, do some social good?
Pause. Thank you for that question, Susan. You know, I think I was talking with Jonathan at the beginning of the panel, and he was asking me how Brotherhood Sister Soul started. And then I hear, you know, Nina say that so much of her experience and success is due to luck. And I had a professor in college, Elmo Terry Morgan, and he used to get irritated with a lot of the black students on campus. And he said they walk around like they're the first smart Negroes to ever walk this earth. And what he meant is, one of the brilliant people I know is my uncle. And my uncle grew up at a time in North Carolina where he couldn't even graduate from high school, let alone go to college. And when he walked down the street, quite directly, he had to step into the gutter to allow white folks to walk down the street. That's the world he grew up in. And so I was raised from an early age within my family that really these words, philanthropy and giving back, weren't the words we used. Social justice was a calling. And I never questioned that I would get involved in work that would contribute to trying to create more equity, more equality in our world, that would try to pass on that same lesson, that our young people would receive the support and guidance and love so that they could overcome what they face. I'm amazed all the time at our young people and their endurance. You know, it's that they don't sit in the corner and bang their head against the wall, quite honestly, because of what they've gone through. They have unbelievable power inside of them. So how do you harness that? And so when we started this work 16 years ago now, my co-founder and I, we focused on two statistics at the beginning. And this is kind of an elliptical way coming back to what Susan asked me. Number one was that in the year we graduated from college, for every black male who graduated from college, 100 were incarcerated at some point in the United States of America. For every one who graduated, 100 were incarcerated. We were stunned by that. The second was that this was a time in New York City where over 2,200 people were getting killed in the city from gunfire. Right now it's still an abomination, it's over 500, but then it was 2,200. So we looked at those two issues and we said we have to do something. It wasn't about giving back, it wasn't about starting a nonprofit. I didn't even know the word social entrepreneurship. I didn't know about, you know, this kind of business that is the nonprofit sector. What we knew is young people were dying. We felt we had an approach to help young people turn their life around, and that helping them to survive was our duty. It wasn't an aside, it wasn't something we were going to do in addition to, but it was the calling every single day of what we were going to do. We were committed to social justice and we were committed to equity and all these big things, but really on an interpersonal level, we were committed to people and humanity and living a different kind of way. And we believed that if we lived that life, that would inspire young people to live their life in the same way, and that our life had to be our message. So Jason's favorite quote is from Mahatma Gandhi, "My life is my message." So how is it that you're living your life? And you can choose lots of different areas. And Martin Luther King once talked about within the civil rights movement that everyone doesn't have to be a civil rights fighter every single day in terms of their title. You can have any job you want, but within your work, you must be committed to civil rights and justice. Because when we started this work, we felt we were really passing on a mission. And we felt that we were people who had a calling to do something different with our life. And so I can't point to a single decision. I can't point to a moment in my life when that was where I chose a path. I feel like it's a path that I've always been on. And no matter what other opportunities have come around, or no matter what opportunities come in the future, the vision and the commitment to social justice and to change and creating equity for our young people runs deep. And I think it runs deep because we understand, if not for how we were born, the families we were born into, the opportunities we had, we wouldn't be where we are. And so it's our duty and our job to help our young people to have those same kind of opportunities.
First of all, I just want to thank the panel. My name is Dr. Lenore Fulani, and I'm a grassroots educator and a political activist. And I wanted to ask about two concepts and how they shape or how you think about them. So we list the statistics of all the different things that are wrong with our communities, all the failures, all the realities of those communities. And oftentimes what we don't do is talk about them as an indication of poverty. And a lot of the kids that I work with don't know they're poor because in the United States everybody's middle class. in some myth. I grew up poor, and I know the impact of growing up poor. It's not just not having food. It's also having creativity squashed. It's like, and it's not because your family doesn't love you. It's because there's so many things in the world that you don't connect with. So one thing I was wondering is where that fits in how people think about charity and charitable giving and helping people to grow. And the other thing is that the whole issue of innovation. A lot of times when we talk about what our communities need and what young people need, we talk about it in the voices, I don't know, of our grandparents. But if we don't develop innovative ways of dealing with, for example, the education crises, we can't change the impact of what's happening. So I just wanted people to say something also about how they think about innovation, because I think it's so necessary in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm. Anybody? You know, it's interesting. I actually have that question on my paper. And the reason I put it on my paper is because Teach for America is actually celebrating their 25th anniversary next weekend in DC, and they're going to have over 10,000 people in education and all other fields coming together. And it's, I remember when Teach for America was founded because it was the year I was graduating from college. And my line sister actually was one of the first class members in Teach for America. And back then, I remember her saying, you know, I'm going to apply for this program called Teach for America. And we were like, what is that, right? But it's fascinating because it really has become the thing for young people today. So I would love to hear comments from folks in the panel.
Well, I think I alluded to it before when I talked a little bit about raising expectations, but I think we have to do so much more for teachers and for everybody, just to say to all children that you're capable of everything and anything. And I noticed that for even my own children who went to parochial and private schools, the level of expectation of their teachers was not as high as I had expected it to be. And even putting together a list for colleges for our children, the colleges that they were looking, that the guidance counselor was proposing, was not consistent with their grades and their scores. So you see this child of color, and the things that you say to him or her, and the way in which you interact, you know, speaks volumes. And how we elevate that, I just think we just have to do it ourselves all the time and just insist and demand. You call it innovation, you have to demand that. And I mean, I almost beat my head against the wall. My kids were in private school, and I had to go on the board and get crazy. I mean, really, you know, you have to advocate. And when I went on the board, I said, it's a conflict of interest. I called Ted, put on your suit and go up there and raise hell. Well, at a private school, I'm paying like, you know, $25,000 a year. I got to go curse somebody out to put my kid in AP, whatever, and they're testing beautifully. I mean, if I have to do that as a middle-class mother, what the hell is going on? I know what's going on with poor kids. And the lack of advocacy for our children, for our babies, is a disgrace. It's a disgrace in this country, right? And it's horrible. And what are we doing? That's why I said I was so supportive of this young man who wanted to be the head of the school board in Newark. And he had an interesting background growing up in Newark. His mother, he was the parent of teenage parents, and his mother finally got custody of him. His parents, his grandmother and aunts and uncles were raising him. His mother married. The stepfather killed the mother when he was 7 years old. So then his grandmother said, this is crazy, I'm just going to raise you. And he went to the mentoring scholarship program at my son's parochial school, which I've been on the board for many, many years. And we put 6 or 7 kids through Seton Hall Prep every year, full scholarship, and we mentored them and give them everything that they need to be successful. He went on to Duke and then Columbia Law School. He's a civil rights lawyer, professor at Seton Hall Law School. And he said, I want to do something for the kids of Newark. He said, because I understand it. So we need to really promote and to support more people like that. That's innovation. Getting young people that really get it to run the school board and to run the school systems instead of having people that don't have a clue. It's really it's a national disgrace. I don't have to tell you all.
You see, this is the passion that's needed. It's the wisdom and the insight and the passion that's needed. And you're asking about innovation. You know, Brotherhood Sister Soul is an innovative model. Why isn't it replicated all throughout the country? There's no problem that we have in the society that doesn't have a solution. But we're stuck in a rut, and we're quiet. We're quiet. You know, it's amazing to me. I remember during the last presidential election, the campaign, the word you never heard was poor. You never heard poverty. So, I was a struggling single mother after a marriage broke up. I went from being a middle-class housewife to a poor single mother. And when you're trying to keep a roof over your head and food on the table, you're not advocating for yourself. You're trying to keep the roof over your head and the food on the table. This is our responsibility. Like what you said, Ted, put on your suit. In Chicago, I have a group there, Windy City Cares. And there are some young brothers who were incarcerated, and they're out now, and they have transformed their lives, and they're trying to help other young people not, take that very same path. Every time they try to speak to somebody in the neighborhood who might have been in juvenile detention, they are arrested. So I said, our responsibility is to put on our suits and our ties and our pearls and go down to the police commissioner and to see the mayor and to say, not on our watch. Not to fight, but to say, there's just so much. We can solve all the problems in our community. You know what, every day I have to say, it's not the rough side of the mountain. If you know our history, this is not the rough side of the mountain. This is sweet. This is as good as it's ever been for everybody who's in here, And so we need innovative models. They exist. But what we don't have is the voice and the organization that is pushing them forward and demanding them. How do we allow schools to not work in the wealthiest country in the world? How do we believe we can solve 2 wars in the Middle East and we can't fix what shouldn't be broken? Public education? It's not them, it's us. So I think you need to push your pastors, your rabbis, your imams to stand for something outside of the church walls and to really recover the communities that they exist in.
Oh, I see you itching to get in here.
Yeah, right. I grew up with 3 sisters. Sometimes I'm pretty good.
I got you.
He's not going to say this to you, but one of his sisters is Ntozake Shange.
But I just want to talk for a second. First of all, Dr. Kwani has tremendous innovation going on with some of the programs in the schools that she's working with herself, having developed. I'd like to think that Eagle Academy is an innovative approach. But I can tell you something. It's innovative that through this initiative, we were able to get the City of New York to invest $50 million in a brand new school for young boys of color in the South Bronx, full of all the technology that you would expect in any school in this day and age. And we hope to do that and continue to do that until we get to 7 schools in the 7 congressional districts that account for 70% of the prison population in this state. So we're pushing innovation, but to some extent, there is a natural development between my parents, my grandparents' generation, my generation, and those of you coming up behind me and behind my generation. Each generation should be able to see a bigger picture, should be able to think differently about how to approach problems and how to develop solutions. And I just want to urge the folks here looking at these kinds of things to think big, to think as big as you can think. Because if you can think big, you can figure out how to get there. But if you're not thinking big, you're never going to move the needle. And we have to start to think more programmatically and more strategic. That's why we talked about not building a school, but building a model so we could build multiple schools. Not just talking to, trying to help the neighbor next door, but figuring out a process, a program by which you can help a community. And we've got to demand the adequate allocation of public resources to help address solutions to the problems that we're seeing. And I think if we go down that path, we'll do better and better as each generation picks up.
And Jonathan, I'd love for you to address the question, but also go from the perspective of developing sustainable communities.
So, that's so many things to say. I'm going to try and say very little. So first of all, one of the things that's completely ignored in America is that poverty, health, and the environment are deeply interrelated, and that poor communities are communities of enormous environmental impact, that lower income people and people in these communities suffer from enormous health effects, and that the idea of what is a sustainable community emerged from essentially a white hippie ideal, and in many ways has held in its worldview something that has been separate from low-income communities. And what has been astounding to me is, astounding is the wrong word, what has been inspirational to me is when you look at Sustainable South Bronx and so many areas, communities in which we're working, how people in low-income communities embody and get, they understand what a true sustainable community is in a very deep way. So we're building, for example, an amazing project in the South Bronx called Via Verde, which will probably be the greenest new affordable housing, the most innovative. It's got all kinds of features. We not only focus on energy, we focus on human health. We have a Montefiore Hospital clinic on the ground floor. We have a health club. We did things like we moved all the stairways to the outside so that they're daylit with windows so that people would naturally want to exercise through walk up and down the stairs instead of having inner city, kind of inside stairs. There are endless features within this building. It's got live work, it's mixed income, it goes very deeply low income. It's got all these amazing green roofs that start with a meditation garden on the top, and a senior garden goes down to like Tai Chi yoga garden, youth garden, and then a whole series.
We just gotta, where is it?
So this is it's in construction now to be done in about 8 months. It's on Brook Avenue, 151st Street. It then goes down to vegetable gardens in which people can actually grow their own food, an orchard, and then an amphitheater, because arts have to be all part of this too. So what's so amazing is, and I really believe this is the coolest new green affordable housing vision for what a community could be in America, and it's in the South Bronx. And people are going to be coming from all over the world to see it. And what's so gratifying for me is that when we have our groundbreaking ceremony, when the community board, the residents, when they speak of it, to know that it is from the South Bronx, and not Portland, Oregon, that the coolest building is going to rise, I think means a lot.
So we are, and before I bring back Valentine and Andrus, I want to do something that's we have not done tonight, which is to introduce our young people to you. So for all the young people who are part of the program, the alumni, I want you to stand, and I want you to be recognized. To find one of these young people here tonight, exchange information, email, tweet with them, Facebook with them, right? Give them the opportunity to benefit from your wisdom, but most importantly, give yourself the opportunity to benefit from theirs. I will tell you that I have 4 young people from this program who are my children, who I love like they were from me. They are all in college, and as Kari and I know, we always joke that I'm the mean mama and he's the nice father. So, but they have made an amazing difference in my life, and I just challenge you to make sure that you give these young people the opportunity to benefit from a relationship with you. So with that, I'm going to turn it, you all can sit down now, and I'm going to turn it back over to Valentine and Andrus. Oh, wait, just one second. I want to say thank you to the panel. I almost forgot. Is when you have all of these superstars who are like taking notes from each other. I think it's wonderful. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you all coming and taking and spending the time with us tonight. So
thank you. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and thank you, Susan, for being a phenomenal moderator. She's been doing this for 4 years now. It was about 4 months ago that Valentine and I sat together and had dinner after a very, very, very long day at work and sort of started to think about where we wanted this panel to come. I have a short story, and it's that 4 years ago, I was an associate at UBS upstairs on the 15th floor, and I came to this event in its first year. And I was so blown away by the experience, and as Tamika said, it was maybe, you know, a quarter of the people in here, but I just sort of felt it was low-hanging fruit. I thought, I can't not go to this, it's downstairs. And so I came, and I know I had numbers to run, and I had things to do, and I think I stayed until like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning that after the event and went back to the office and worked. But I was so taken by it, and what happened is that I went to every single Brotherhood Sister Soul event that calendar year. And you'll see that all of you had on your seats a little calendar of events that are coming up. Well, now I'm on the board at the Brotherhood Sister Soul, and I think that this event was the event that brought me to this family. I think what we've heard tonight is that, you know, we sort of are on this track, and there are a lot of people in this room that are extremely successful and have really arrived at some important milestones in their life in their own right. However, you know, we have this vision, I think, in the United States and maybe globally of sort of moving up and moving on out and moving up and moving on out. And in my board interview with Kari, when I was interviewed for this board, they said, you know, what do you like about this? And I said, yeah, I really see myself as vertically, as not vertically growing, but horizontally growing. I'm trying to make my family larger. And he said, well, that's good, because once you're in this one, you're not going anywhere. And I think that that's what we've heard here. It's like you could be doing investment banking, you could be a lawyer, you could be doing something day in and day out. If you take that time, that hour to meditate, you take that time to listen to someone, or that you remember the times that other people took a little bit of time to listen to you, all of a sudden your world becomes a whole lot larger. And so your perspective, your ability to source solutions, as Paul mentioned, your passion gets driven by so many people. And so I hope that you got a little bit of a sense of that today. We today put this event together in order to broaden our circles, to say, look at what we're doing, and maybe you have some ideas that we have not thought about, and maybe you could participate. So it took Tanika and Susan and Valentine to come up with this idea, and 4 years later, I'm, you know, co-chairing it. And so they reached out to me. By me coming here, I gave and I got, and now I'm giving and I'm getting, and I hope that's what you got out of this evening. So I thank you immensely for coming. We're going to invite you to have some more drinks, you know, talk to some more people, meet some of our young people, have a little something to eat, and I certainly hope that you'll come to some of our other events. I hope you were inspired. Every time I see our video, I'm inspired. I think I almost had, you know, a tear in my eye a couple times this evening, and I hope that you know, I'll just say that we stand with open arms. We're welcome. We're happy to welcome you into our family, and I hope you'll stay for a long time. Thanks again so much, all of our panelists.